Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to this panel on human dignity. Human dignity is a foundational, yet deeply complex ideal. It is invoked in constitutional texts, human rights instruments, and judicial reasoning across the world. But it often carries different meanings, depending on historical, cultural, and legal context. As someone who has had the opportunity to engage with this concept academically, in 2019, I prepared a contribution, a chapter on human dignity in Albania as part of the Handbook on Human Dignity in Europe, published by the University of Lucerne in Switzerland. I can attest that defining dignity is far from a simple task. It is not merely a philosophical ideal, but a living principle that interacts dynamically with constitutional law, political realities, and social values. I'm sorry, but it's a bit difficult to talk about human dignity in such circumstances. This experience has convinced me that dignity is not a fixed or abstract value. It is alive, dynamic, and at times deeply contested. Dignity is everywhere, in constitutional preambles, in court decisions, in international declarations. Yet what we mean by dignity and how we protect it often differs deeply from one system to another. We are fortunate today to hear from outstanding speakers who will explore dignity's multiple faces as a constitutional right, as a principle, and as a lens through which we interpret justice and human rights. So today we will try to explore these dimensions: how human dignity is defined in legal and constitutional frameworks, whether it stands as constitutional right or as constitutional principle, how it is interpreted by courts, how it relates to other fundamental rights, and the challenges it faces in our time. I look forward to a rich and thoughtful exchange, although the time is not so long for this, but anyhow, we will try. And I hope today's discussions deepens all of our understanding about human dignity. First, let me introduce our speakers. We have 4 speakers in our panel. I have the pleasure of introducing Professor Dr. Pierre Nihoul, President of the Constitutional Court of Belgium, Professor in Public Law in UC Louvain, and Emeritus State Counselor, member of the Council of State and of the European Public Law Group. He will speak about the constitutional status of human dignity in Belgium. The second speaker will be Dr. Ilir Panda, Vice President of the Supreme Court of Albania, Professor of Criminal Law, former Vice Chairman of the High Judicial Council. He will introduce the concept of BESA and beyond, the evolution of human dignity in the Albanian jurisprudence, an introduction of the roots of human dignity in Albania, and some examples that stand as testaments to the Albanian spirit, including the qualities of Mother Teresa. For those who don't know, Mother Teresa was Albanian. The third speaker will be Ms. Zeina, lawyer specializing in constitutional law and human rights, member of the Casablanca Bar Association, and chair of the Committee on Financial Economic Development at the Moroccan Parliament. Her topic is linked with human dignity in constitutional practice, the Moroccan experience. The last speaker, but not less interesting, will be Heidi Patricia Berroa-Baez, Professor of International and Comparative Law, who works as Director of International and Interinstitutional Relations at the Constitutional Court. She will introduce us to human dignity as a pillar of fundamental rights, highlighting the case of Dominican Republic. So let's begin with our first speaker. Mr. President, the floor is yours, whenever you're ready.
So, how does Belgium approach this polysemous concept? Does Belgium constitutional law take account of the right of human dignity? I will develop 4 topics to answer, I hope so, at this question. First, the right to human dignity in Belgian constitution. Absent from the Belgian constitution before 1994, the right to human dignity was explicitly mentioned in the new Article 23 of the Constitution. First, but only reference. What says this provision? Article 23 of the Constitution states, everyone has the right to lead a life of human dignity. To this end, is important to this end, the law, taking into account the corresponding obligations, guarantee economic, social, and cultural rights, and determine the condition for their exercise. And the 3rd paragraph of this provision lists 6 rights concerned to know more social, economic, cultural, and environmental human rights. For example, the right to decent housing, the right to social security, the right to protection of a healthy environment. The 1st paragraph proclaims the right to lead a life in accordance with human dignity. The structure of the text of Article 23 indicates that the provision is not so much intended to guarantee the right to a human dignity as a distinct human right, but to refer to it as a general principle, presiding, as the words to the end indicate, over the insertion of the so-called 2nd generation of human rights into the Constitution. So textually, the concept of human dignity in this constitutional provision is limited to recognizing the right to decent living conditions for guaranteeing and exercising the rights listed, rather than a universal right to human dignity. Second topic, justiciability of Article 23. The lack of direct effect of this provision is reflected in the case law of the Belgian Constitutional Court, which has consistently held that these provisions do not specify what is implied by these rights, of which only the principle is expressed, each legislator being responsible for guaranteeing them. However, Article 23 is not reduced to a purely programmatic provision. Article 23 must be understood as containing 3 principles: a principle of soft-net legality, a principle of equality, and an effect of non-regression. First principle of attenuated legality. This means that any legislator regulating the rights listed in Article 23 may largely delegate this matter to the executive power. Second principle of equality. Article 23 does not in itself contain the principle of equality, but Article 10 and 11 of the Belgian Constitution prohibits all forms of discrimination, including discrimination in the enjoyment of the rights guaranteed by the Constitution, by international treaties, and by the general principles of law. And third principle, standstill or no regression effect. The standstill effect generally means that the legislator cannot reduce the level of protection of this right offered by the applicable legislation. Third topic, the case law in the Constitutional Court of Belgium with 4 subtopics. First subtopic, wide margin of discretion. That is, for the legislator to decide when limits must be set on a fundamental socio-economic right. Such restrictions would only be unconstitutional if the legislator introduced them without there being any need to do so, or if they had significantly disproportionate consequences. The control exercised by the Belgian Constitutional Court is not the strictest. Between 2002 and 2022, the court handed down 216 rulings relating to Article 23. It found 22 violations of this article and declared 7 non-violations subject to interpretation in accordance with the law. So, less than 10%. Second subtopic, all Article 23 rights. The Constitutional Court has accepted the principle of standstill for all the social economic rights mentioned in the 3rd paragraph of Article 23. On the other hand, it has never given standstill effect to the principle of human dignity itself. Third subtopics, changes in the reference point. The reference point for assessing the level of protection of the right concerned is not the date on which Article 23 of the Constitution came into force, to now 12 January 1994, but that each new legislative reform constitutes the new reference point. So this is the mobile or dynamic point over the fixed or static point. The fourth subtopic, possibility of reducing the level of protection. The strict approach to the reference point is countered by the court's more flexible approach to the possibilities of reducing the level of protection. In the court case law, the non-regression effect is not an absolute right in the sense that not every step backwards violates the standstill obligation. Article 23 of the Constitution, says the court, contains a standstill obligation which prohibits the competent legislator from significantly reducing without reasonable justification the degree of protection afforded by the applicable legislation. So, to breach the standstill obligation, the regression must be significant and there must be no reasonable justification. For the topics, final remarks. Two developments. First, the Constitutional Court's review relates only to the specific rights listed in the 3rd paragraph of Article 23 of the Belgian Constitution, and not to the principle of human dignity itself. Nevertheless, human dignity appears to be a threshold that cannot be crossed by a significant non-regression in the implementation of this right by the legislator. Second idea, when the Belgian Constitutional Court is asked to examine the conformity of legislation with the human rights provisions of the Constitution, it always reads these rights in the light of similar human rights set out in human rights treaties, with they are formed an indivisible unit. By this so-called inclusive technique, the Belgian court can read the rights enumerated in Article 23 in the light of similar provision in human rights treaties. It's very important because future developments are possible within the framework of this global inclusive approach to fundamental rights. Indeed, the principle of human dignity is a general principle of European human law and a human right set out in Article 1st of the Charter of the European Union. Consequently, the principle of human dignity applies in all EU member states, including Belgium, as a human right within the scope of EU law. Within this scope, the Constitutional Court could read the principle of human dignity in Article 23 of the Belgian Constitution in the light of Article 1st of the Charter and by applying the case law of the Court of Justice on the matter. So, the right to lead a life of human dignity, therefore, as I think a long future in the case law of the Belgian Constitutional Court, it can be a driving force for the future development of law and legal practice. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. President Nihoul, for your very structured presentation. Just one technical thing. Since there are only 4 speakers, we could allow ourselves to be more flexible about our minutes. So let's hear our next speaker, Mr. Vice President Panda. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Professor Vorpsi. Honorable colleagues, united in the pursuit of justice. The title of my presentation is BESA and Beyond, the evolution of human dignity in the Albanian jurisprudence. The title of the presentation could have been many and varied, but I choose this one, even with a word unknown to you. For Spanish people, BESA in Albanian is not a kiss, but is another thing that I will explain to you below. It is both a privilege and profound honor to stand before you today. Yet, I must confess the difficulty of encapsulating the enduring dignity of a people tested by centuries of adversity, invasion, and oppression, yet never conquered within constraint of mere of 7 or 10 or some more minutes. In acknowledging the comprehensive discourse of human dignity, its fundamental principles, its codification in the international and national legal instruments, I shall endeavor to present select historical and juridical perspectives from my homeland, Albania. The roots of human dignity in Albania run deep, woven into the very fabric of our national identity. Globally, 2 extraordinary exemplars stand as statements to the Albanian spirit. Mother Teresa, the Albanian luminary whose unwavering commitment to the intrinsic worth of every human being transcended boundaries of wealth, status, or ability. Her life embodied compassion, empathy, and equality, cornerstones of human dignity. The second example came from Second World War. Albania holds the singular distinction of being the only nation where not a single Jewish life was surrendered to the Nazi persecution. Historical records affirm that Albania's Jewish population increased by the wars, and a powerful testament to collective courage and moral fortitude. These narratives are but glimpses into a legacy where dignity, even under siege, remained unbroken. Allow me to present three pivotal phases in the evolution of human dignity within Albanian historical narrative. These key moments include customary law, the dictatorship era, and the contemporary democratic period. It must be noted that Albania's historical identity is profoundly shaped by its unique legal tradition, customary law. This norm, though unwritten, were rigorously preserved through oral transmission across generations. Collectively, they formed what is known as the Kanun, a system that has significantly influenced and the development of Albanian jurisprudence. While several variants of Kanun existed, the most renewed is the Kanun of Lek Dukagjini, codified in 15th century and practiced until the 20th century. Its provisions were systematically compiled and first published in 1933. The Kanun conceptualization of human dignity manifested through several fundamental principles. One, personal and familial honor, Besa, or the sacred oath, and one's given word, responsibility towards family and community, and four, the defense of dignity through retributive justice. Among the elements of human dignity enshrined in the Kanun, I shall focus particularly on Besa, a concept that distinguishes Albanian tradition in global scholarship and has been extensively documented by foreign researchers. Since there is no exact translation of the word Besa in English, I will retain the original Albanian term, so Besa, to refer to this concept throughout this work. Besa is intrinsically tied to both dignity and manhood. For this audience, a precise definition of the term is essential. In the literal meaning, Besa translates to oath, pledge, or word of honor. In the cultural context, in the Kanun, it represents an inviolable promise, simply put, absolute trust, a binding moral duty to protect even an enemy once hospitality is granted. Besa is interwoven with dignity through the concept of honor. It is considered sacred. To break one Besa is an indelible disgrace resulting in complete loss of honor and dignity. Several Kanun provisions resonate with contemporary dignity frameworks. Under the Kanun, the protection of guests is inviolable. A host may neither insult nor harm a guest, even an enemy, under their roof. A supreme form of respect for interpersonal covenants, and all men had equal rights to seek justice. But there are some contradictions with the modern dignity. However, certain norms starkly contrast modern principles of human dignity. Through dignity through blood feud, a family's dignity was upheld through vengeance. If a member was killed, the family was obligated to pursue retribution to restore honor, perpetuating cycles of violence. But it has only an antidote: blood reconciliation. Dignity could be restored through mediation, where compensation, money or land, halted the feud, an early form of restorative justice, and gender inequality. Women lacked equal status. Through considered family members, they could neither make familiar decisions nor participate in feuds. Their dignity was tied to chastity and loyalty. The Canon of Leg Ducagini frames human dignity through collective honor, social hierarchy, and retributive justice, not individual rights, while elements like Besa and hospitality aligned with universal dignity, most norms conflict with modern human rights, particularly gender equality and personal freedom. Albanian ballads and proverbs reflect these deep-seated values where Besa and friendship are revered, notably names like Besa and its derivative like Besmir, a good Besa, or Besard, a golden Besa, remain common, underscoring the concept's cultural endurance. The Canon's study remind us that dignity is culturally contingent, its evolution shaped by a society's legal and social progress. In the dictatorship era, it is widely acknowledged and likely familiar to this audience that among the most egregious atrocities of dictatorial regimes is their systematic assault on human dignity. In Albania, under communist rule, this manifested with particular brutality. Citizens faced persecution even for their spoken words, while convictions were routinely secured through coerced testimony from the accused's own family members. The charges of agitation and propaganda against the state of ruling party became emblematic of this period. The regime weaponized family bonds, compelling relatives under duress to testify against one another, a practice wholly aligned to the Albanian contemporary legal framework. The institutionalized betrayal of trust not only violated individual dignity, but eroded the very fabric of social cohesion. The contrast with present-day legal protection could not be more stark. The contemporary era, the human dignity in Albanian current legal framework. The constitution in Albania and applicable legislation protect the dignity of individuals and guarantee fundamental human rights. Various institutions, such as the Ombudsman, the Commissioners for Protection from Discrimination, and the Commissioner for Personal Data Protection, play a key role in protecting these rights. Today, the protection of human rights, dignity, and personality is constitutionally enshrined in the Republic of Albania's fundamental law. The preamble of Constitution explicitly states that the people of Albania are committed to safeguarding human dignity and personality. Furthermore, Article 3 established human dignity as one of the fundamental pillars of the state. Within Albanian judicial system, all legal procedures must fundamentally respect and protect individual dignity. This principle manifests through the presumption of innocence, guaranteed rights of the accused, human treatment, privacy, and confidentiality protection. This stands in stark contrast to the dictatorship era practices previously discussed. Modern Albanian jurisprudence incorporate multiple safeguards for human dignity, particularly evidenced in two critical articles of Criminal Procedure Code. The Article 158, which title is Exemption from Testimonial Obligation, and says that the following person cannot be compelled to testify, which are immediate family or in-law of the accused, current or former spouses, cohabiting partners regarding information obtained during their relationship, and the individuals related through adoption. The court must inform this person of their rights to decline testimony. Violation of this provision renders any obtained testimony invalid. The Article 159 for the professional confidentiality provides that persons cannot be compelled to disclose professional confidences, except when legally mandated to report to authorities. These are religious representative, lawyers, legal representative, and notaries, medical professions, including physicians, surgeons, pharmacists, and midwives. As previously established, Albania's historical approach to human dignity has never been absolute. This nuanced perspective remains relevant today. Consider these developments. Until recently, Albanian law criminalized homosexuality. Such provisions have now been abolished. Similarly, laws against gambling have been repealed. However, the Penal Code continues to criminalize prostitution and pornography, activities legally regulated in many democratic states. This dichotomy prompts a critical inquiry. Does this represent a progress or a regression in our protection of human dignity? And the last topic, I would consider the treatment of the concept of human dignity in the judiciary incomplete if I did not briefly address the judge's sense of humanity, which is also a deontological obligation, indeed an essential component of judicial conduct. In a document prepared by European Network of Councils for the Judiciary, which outlines the deontologic duties of judges, it is stated the judge's sense of humanity is manifested through respect for individuals and their dignity in all circumstances of their professional and private life. Humanity, which entails sensitivity to the situations subject to their judgment, leads the judge to assess and consider the human dimension of their decisions. It falls upon them, in evaluating facts and during the decision-making process, to strike a balance between empathy, compassion, understanding, punishment, and severity, so the application of the laws is perceived and understood as legitimate and just. Such values also been endorsed in the Albanian judiciary. In 2021, the High Judicial Council of Albania adopted the Code of Judicial Ethics, which enshrines the aforementioned values of judges. Another essential element of human dimension is emotions. It is often said that judges should keep emotions at bay. However, I believe that judges have no reason to fear emotions. Reasoning devoid of emotion leads to poor decisions. Just and unchecked emotion result flawed judgments. Naturally, all elements of ethics, deontology are obligatory, but in this context, the term empathy particularly caught my attention. Therefore, since the European Network for Council of Judiciary itself has defined it, I will elaborate further, briefly explaining what we mean by empathy and how it would function for judges. If we were to break down empathy into simple terms, it would entail the ability to do three things in relationships to others. Understand another person's emotional state. So this is the emotion empathy. To comprehend the motivation behind another's behavior is called behavioral empathy. And to put oneself in another's shoes, to better grasp their thoughts and the reasoning behind their actions. This is known as cognitive empathy. In advanced democracies, empathy in the judiciary has received significant attention. A notable example is President Obama, who, when nominating a US Supreme Court justice, placed empathy at the front of his criteria. He told Americans that he viewed it as a quality essential for understanding and identifying with people's hopes and struggle, a vital component in reaching fair decisions and outcomes. He emphasized seeking a justice with a sharp mind, independence, and compassion. Beyond the legal foresight of empathy discussed earlier, I believe that we must make empathy an integral part of judicial decision-making. Why not? Let us also articulate another form of empathy, so-called legal or judicial empathy. Regarding the latter, I have dared to propose in my country that testing this ability should become part of judges' qualification process, because I think that a judge who feels, a judge with empathy, must be the next legal reform in my country. But this could be a topic for a separate conference. Finally, I have advanced a thesis that could mark a new milestone for the Albanian judiciary. For a justice system that is truly inclusive today, we must work in two directions: the empathic training of judges and the legal education of litigants. This will ensure that parties in court behave as lawfully as possible, while legal professionals act as humanly as possible. Thank you for your attention, and muchas gracias a todos.
Thank you, Mr. Panda, for this wonderful trip to three different time periods, from customary law to the period of dictatorship and then to democracy, about the concept of human dignity. Very interesting for the audience, of course. The third speaker would be Ms. Zeina. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Distinguished Chair, esteemed panelists, ladies and gentlemen, it's a big honor to participate in this esteemed panel and to chair the platform with distinguished colleagues as we examine the concept of human dignity, a fundamental value at the core of all modern constitutional systems. I would like to express my gratitude to the organizers of the World Law Congress for convening this vital conversation, and to our chair, Professor Vorpsi, for skillfully guiding us in structuring this panel. Human dignity, while universally recognized, is far from a mere abstraction. It is the essential foundation upon which human rights are built and operationalized in Morocco. Human dignity holds a privileged position within the constitutional framework. Human dignity holds a privileged position with the constitutional framework, particularly following the far-reaching constitutional reform of 2011, which was the result of unprecedented national consultation. This constitution not only reaffirms Morocco's commitment to the universal value of freedom, equality, and social justice, but also places human dignity at the center of its legal order. In terms of definition, human dignity in Morocco's legal system is conceived as a multidimensional concept that encompasses respect for both the physical and the moral integrity of every person. Article 22 of the Constitution states unequivocally the physical or moral integrity of anyone shall not be infringed under any circumstances, and no one may inflict upon others under any pretext whatsoever cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or harm. This article, coupled with the preamble, which affirms Morocco's attachment to universally recognized human rights, establishes dignity as the bedrock of both individual and collective rights. Responding to the question of whether dignity is a constitutional right or principle, Morocco's experience shows that it serves as both. It functions as a fundamental principle that guides the interpretation and application of all rights and freedoms. At the same time, it's an inactionable right that individuals can invoke to seek protection or remedy. The Constitutional Court of Morocco has confirmed this dual nature in multiple rulings. For instance, the court stresses that the respect of equality and non-discrimination is inseparable from the protection of human dignity, thereby reaffirming Morocco's obligation to uphold both domestic constitutional provision and international commitments and their instruments such as the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, CEDAW. Judicial practice further reveals how Moroccan courts have consistently grounded their rulings in the protection of dignity, especially concerning vulnerable populations, the prohibition of torture and cruel treatment, the advancement of gender equality, and protection for children and people with disabilities are all areas where the courts have recognized dignity as the cornerstone of legal interpretation. Regarding the question of amendability, Morocco's constitution does not explicitly list human dignity as unamendable. However, dignity is deeply embedded in the identity of the constitutional system and serves as guiding light for any constitutional reform. Amending the essence of human dignity would not only contradict the spirit of the 2011 reform, but also undermine the fundamental values upon which Morocco's modern legal order is built. Human dignity in Morocco is not a standalone concept, but is intrinsically linked to other fundamental rights, whether in the realm of the right to life, equality, privacy, education, or social protection. Dignity serves as the ultimate reference point. For instance, in debates over social welfare and access to healthcare, Moroccan policymakers and courts alike have underscored that ensuring the dignity of all citizens requires tangible and effective measures, not merely formal recognition. Of course, Morocco, like many nations, faces significant challenges in upholding human dignity fully in practice. The realities of social and regional inequalities, increasingly connected world, all pose ongoing difficulties. These challenges call for continued vigilance and innovation to ensure that dignity is preserved not only in principle, but in daily life. It is within the framework of dignity as both a legal and practical commitment that Morocco's approach to its southern provinces, the Moroccan Sahara, deserves attention. Morocco has always linked the principle of human dignity to its vision of territorial integrity and national unity. The dignity of every citizen, regardless of region, is central to its statecraft. This commitment is vividly illustrated by the new development model of the southern provinces launched in 2015. This ambitious program, with a budget exceeding 77 billion dirham, around $8 billion, focuses on infrastructure, healthcare, education, environmental protection, and economic diversification. The aim is clear: to empower the people of the southern provinces and to correct historical disparities, ensuring that development becomes a tangible expression of dignity. Participation is another vital dimension. Morocco has made significant effort to guarantee that the population of these provinces are not merely beneficiaries of development, but active participants in public life and local governance. This is especially notable in the area of women's participation. Sahrawi women have emerged as key actors in both local and national decision-making bodies. Women from the southern provinces hold seats in the Moroccan parliaments, presides over municipal councils, regional councils, and actively contribute to civil society organizations. Their leadership not only advances gender equality, but also embodies Morocco's commitment to dignity through inclusive governance. These women serve as vital links between their communities and national institutions, ensuring that local voices are heard and the policies reflect the lived realities of all citizens. Moreover, women's participation extends to the sphere of human rights advocacy and conflict resolution. Sahrawi women have played significant roles in Morocco's national human rights bodies, such as the National Council of Human Rights, CNDH, particularly its commissions based in Laayoune and Dakhla. These institutions provide platforms for citizens to voice grievance, seek redress, and participate in building a right respecting culture, again, a direct application of the principle of dignity. On the international front, Morocco's autonomy plan, first presented to the United Nations in 2007, proposes a framework for substantial self-governance in the Sahara within Moroccan sovereignty. This plan is not merely a political solution, it is framed as a dignity-based model that guarantees local population the rights to administer their affairs democratically while benefiting from national development and protection. Morocco has consistently emphasized that a just, lasting, and mutually acceptable solution to the regional dispute must uphold the dignity, rights, and aspiration of the people concerned, principles that resonate with international rights standards. In conclusion, human dignity is not only a universal value, but also a living principle that must be contextualized and implemented according to each society history and aspirations. Morocco's experience illustrates that dignity can be a powerful driver of legal development, social inclusion, and national unity, whether through the constitutional entrenchment of rights, judicial protection, or inclusive development model, as seen in the southern provinces. Morocco seeks to turn the principle of dignity into a concrete reality of all citizens. I look forward to our continued exchange of ideas and to learning from the diverse experiences represented in this panel. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Shaheen. Thank you for introducing us with the perspective of Moroccan experience on human dignity. I see some similarities with the Albanian case, where the dignity is treated like a constitutional principle, but also as human right. But till now, there is no case of constitutional court where a citizen could pretend about his human rights being violated based only on human dignity. The constitutional court continues to elaborate the human dignity always linked to other human rights. So this is maybe a trend all over Europe. Thank you. So the last speaker will be Heidi Patricia Pero-Abais. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I want to thank all my fellow panelists and the audience. Thank you for being here today. I want to thank the World Law Congress too, all the organizers for the courtesy and honor of extending me an invitation to speak with you. I'm gonna do my speech in Spanish first, and then I'm going to summarize some ideas. It's okay. Okay. Voy a hacer mi ponencia en español y luego voy a resumir algunas ideas para los demás invitados. Decía que muy buenos días a todos y agradecía la oportunidad de estar aquí, la invitación y el poder compartir con todos ustedes hoy. Voy a hablar de la dignidad como base de los derechos humanos con una perspectiva jurisprudencial de la República Dominicana. La dignidad de la persona humana es el valor básico que fundamenta los derechos humanos, ya que ella constituye una garantía para el pleno desarrollo de cada ser humano en este mundo. La dignidad entonces se constituye como un fundamento de los derechos humanos. Quiero decir que si no tenemos dignidad, no podemos reclamar el reconocimiento ni el valor de nuestros derechos, aunque sean reconocidos nacionales e internacionalmente. Fue Santo Tomás de Aquino el más claro exponente del iusnaturalismo en la Edad Media, en los artículos del 1 al 3 de la cuestión 91 de su Tratado de la Ley, que establece de manera brillante la distinción y los puntos de encuentro entre la ley eterna, como él le llamaba, la ley natural, y la ley positiva. En este tratado, Santo Tomás dejó muy claro ese valor intrínseco que hoy llamamos dignidad humana. Por su lado, la obra de Kant añade una nueva dimensión moral a la comprensión de los hechos y deja ver que el imperativo moral ya no es solamente personal, sino que apunta también al colectivo, y ustedes saben que Kant hablaba del tutus orbis. Se puede dirigir entonces a un mismo punto lo legal normativo y lo moral para construir leyes internacionales que favorezcan la aplicación de la justicia como le exige la actualidad. Eso hablaba Kant en el 1795. Un hito importante para la dignidad humana en Occidente fue la Escuela de Salamanca y el territorio en el que nos encontramos parados hoy, en la Española, República Dominicana, se pronuncia el 11 de diciembre de 1511 el Sermón de Adviento. Ego vox clamantis in deserto. Soy la voz que clama en el desierto, decía Fray Antón de Montesinos, y ejerce la defensa de los indios, retomando las ideas de Santo Tomás, de Suárez, de Victoria, todo el pensamiento de la Escuela de Salamanca, y se erige entonces en el Nuevo Mundo una importante manifestación de defensa de los derechos humanos. Si bien es cierto que la dignidad humana como concepto filosófico encuentra sus antecedentes en la antigüedad, tanto en el pensamiento griego como en la tradición mosaica, es entonces hasta después de la Segunda Guerra Mundial, con los consabidos juicios que ustedes conocen, que incoaron las naciones vencedoras, que la dignidad humana entonces se reviste de un halo de autoridad, donde ya la encontramos aplicada en nuestros textos legales. El texto por excelencia que consagra la dignidad humana es, sin duda, la Declaración Universal de los Derechos Humanos, del 10 de diciembre de 1948, en que en su artículo primero dice que todos los seres humanos nacen libres e iguales en dignidad y derechos. Pero ya desde las primeras líneas del preámbulo, la declaración esboza la luminosa idea que expone, considerando que la libertad, la justicia y la paz en el mundo tienen por base el reconocimiento de la dignidad intrínseca y de los derechos iguales e inalienables de todos los miembros de la familia humana. Entonces, el concepto de dignidad comienza a formar parte central, fundamental del discurso de todos los tratados de derechos humanos, de las convenciones, tratados multilaterales, no los voy a mencionar, ustedes lo conocen, y esto a su vez va llegando al derecho interno de los estados a través de la internacionalización de los derechos humanos para pasar a ser derechos fundamentales en las constituciones de nuestros países. Siguiendo entonces con el pensamiento de Habermas, para quien existe un vínculo conceptual interno entre los derechos humanos y la dignidad humana, él decía que la defensa de los derechos humanos se nutre de la indignación de los humillados por la violación de su dignidad humana. De modo que si esto configura su punto de partida histórico, tendría entonces que también estar presentes vestigios del vínculo conceptual entre dignidad humana y los derechos humanos desde los inicios del desarrollo del mismo. Ya pasando a un aspecto menos teórico y a un elemento jurisprudencial, específicamente en la República Dominicana, quiero compartir de manera muy breve porque el tiempo también es limitado y tengo que hacer lo que es la conclusión también en inglés. Algunas sentencias, algunas decisiones del Tribunal Constitucional. Y comienzo con una decisión del 2013, porque el Tribunal Constitucional desde sus inicios ha estado hablando de dignidad humana. La dignidad humana es un eje transversal en los derechos fundamentales, que es el objetivo principal del Tribunal Constitucional. Sin dignidad humana no hay derechos fundamentales y por eso la vamos a encontrar en todas sus sentencias. Pongo de relevancia las siguientes. La sentencia 59 del 2013, del 15 de abril del 2013, reconoció la imprescriptibilidad de la reclamación judicial de filiación en razón de que el derecho a la dignidad humana, ya se refería a la dignidad humana como derecho, y el derecho al apellido son derechos fundamentales que se encuentran tutelados en la Constitución de la República y en los tratados que forman parte del bloque de constitucionalidad y están directamente vinculados al valor central del Estado social y democrático de derecho. También tenemos en la sentencia 81 del 2014 que dispone que la dignidad humana hace referencia al valor inherente del ser humano en cuanto al ser racional, independientemente de su raza, condición social o económica, edad, sexo, ideas políticas o religiosas. Es el derecho que tiene cada ser humano de ser respetado y valorado como ser individual y social, con sus características y condiciones particulares. En cuanto a los privativos de libertad, el Tribunal Constitucional se pronunció de la siguiente manera, hablando de su dignidad humana. Dice que toda persona, sin importar su situación, se encuentra amparada por derechos constitucionales que no pueden ser objeto de restricción durante su estadía en prisión. Esto en la sentencia 555, del 2017, y este criterio se ratificó en otro fallo del 2023. En la República Dominicana encontramos en nuestra Constitución la dignidad humana desde el preámbulo, como casi en todas las constituciones. Y específicamente el artículo 38 dispone que la dignidad humana es fundamental en el Estado. Y de hecho establece que el Estado se fundamenta en el respeto a la dignidad humana de la persona y se organiza para la protección real y efectiva de los derechos fundamentales que le son inherentes. Dispone también que la dignidad del ser humano es sagrada, innata e inviolable. Su respeto y protección constituyen una responsabilidad esencial de los poderes públicos. Para ir concluyendo, la dignidad humana el día de hoy sigue siendo un debate profundo que se cierne entre el derecho y la moral, pues para algunos no es legítimo el fundamento moral que junto al jurídico otorga la obligatoriedad de respetar los bienes que implican los derechos humanos. En esta tierra de Anacaona, de Enriquillo, la misma que acogió a Fray Antón, a de las Casas, esta de Duarte, Sánchez y Mella, es la misma que seguirá defendiendo sus ideales de dignidad en cada momento. Y por eso, decía una mujer que murió por el Estado de Derecho y la dignidad humana, Minerva Mirabal, nadie puede desconocer la fuerza interna del pueblo, ni sus valores. Todo lo que él le desconozca fracasará. Pero todavía quedan voces que claman en el desierto y ojalá que nosotros podamos escucharlas y rescatarlas. Gracias. I was saying that an important milestone for human dignity in the West was the School of Salamanca. And in the territory where we are standing today, in La Hispaniola, today Dominican Republic, the Advent sermon, Ego Vox Clamantis in Deserto, was delivered in December 21, 1511, in which Fray Antón de Montesinos defended the indigenous people, taking up the ideas of Santo Tomás, Victoria, Suarez, and the School of Salamanca as form of thought. An important manifestation of the defense of human rights emerged in the New World. Turning to a jurisprudential aspect and briefly highlighting the aspects for the Dominican Republic, let's look at some decision of the Constitutional Court as an example of human dignity in its jurisprudential line. The court has recognized the imprescriptibility of judicial claims of filiation based on the fact that the right to human dignity and the right to a surname are fundamental rights protected by the Constitution of the Dominican Republic and the treaties that form part of the constitutional framework and are directly linked to the core value of the social and democratic state under the rule of law. Other decision is that refers to the inherent value of the human being as a rational being, regardless of race, social or economic status, age, sex, political or religious belief. It is the right of every human being to be respected and valued as an individual and social being with their particular characteristic and condition. Another one is regarding prisoners. The Constitutional Court stated every person, regardless of their situation, is protected by constitutional rights and cannot be restricted during their time in prison. So, in the Dominican Republic, human dignity is a cross-cutting theme thought at the Constitution from its permeable and especially in Article 38 of the Dominican Republic. Human dignity, the state is founded on respect for the dignity of the person and is organized for the real and effective protection of the fundamental rights inherent to them. The dignity of the human being is sacred, innate, and inviolable. Its respect and protection constitute an essential responsibility of the public authorities. Human dignity to this day remains as a debate, a profound debate that, however, is between law and morality, since for some, the moral foundation that, together with the legal foundation, grants the obligation to respect the rights entailed by human rights is illegitimate. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Price. Very insightful presentation from all our speakers. Thank you, everyone. So now I would like to open the floor for questions from the audience, if there is any question for our speakers, or discussion maybe, or sharing opinions. 5 minutes. Is that right? Yeah, okay. Yeah, I know. Any questions? Please. Yeah.
Thank you, Madam the President. We are honored to participate in this World Law Congress. It's so interesting. I appreciate the experience of Belgium. Can you speak with us about signature and ratification of Convention of Human Rights in Belgium, and how to harmonize this arsenal of covenants in different ways with the Constitution of Belgium and with the national legislation in Belgium, in order to improve human rights in the second part and the human dignity in particular, and how to concretize peace through law in the Belgium experience. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I keep in my mind that we have in European Union the case of Poland, I think. Many years ago, the Constitutional Court has refused to apply a directive from European Union. We would like to have your feedback about these articulations between many levels in European Union, because we have, yes, European Union, but we have national level, And we have also sovereignism. Vous parlez français, donc le retour des souverains. We would like to have your feedback concerning this case. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Yes, it's a large topic, your question. So the inclusive technical of the Belgian Constitutional Court is very interesting because with this technique we can evaluate the rights, the human rights in the Constitution with the new human rights in the Charter of Europe of the Human Rights Convention. And I think that in the case law of the Court of Justice, there is evolution about human dignity. The European Court says that the human dignity is inviolable. It must be respected and protected. But that I will say it's very interesting to see that there is no definition of this concept. Some treaties proclaims this concept. The preamble of the Charter of the United Nations, the preamble of the Declaration of Human Rights. It's also for the Charter of the European Union. And in the case law of the courts, of international courts, is the same. So what it means? For me, it means that eventually human dignity includes some rights and freedom, yes. Some like the right to the life, the right, the prohibition of inhuman or degrading treatment. But in say the human dignity, for me, it's a principle. It's a paradigm principle who can be used to protect rights and freedoms, to respect rights and freedoms, and eventually to limit rights and freedom. So this is a therefore for me, and not a distant human right. It's difficult to see what means the polysemous concept, but it's more easy to see this concept as a principle with the three functions that I have said. This is my opinion.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, another question? Okay. Okay. It seems that we have two chairs of this panel.
My name is Mirosław Granat. I came from Warsaw to University. I have a small impression, small note after your presentation concerning the feature, the character of the human dignity. So after the paper, the presentation, the Pierre Nihoul, Monsieur President, I thought that this is only a human dignity. This is the only legal disposition in the Belgian Constitution. After the presentation of lady professor from Morocco, I understood that this is the same, the value, the main value, the fundamental value. So I would like to propose the quite just deal as about the approach to the character of the human dignity. This is the same. This is double face of the human dignity. This is the legal disposition and enormous value. And recently, Mr. President Pierre Nihoul emphasized that this is the principle of the law, according to Dworkin, according to our approach to the principle of the law. This principle of the law have two features. This is the norm and the value. So I would like to propose to summarize this, my no.
Thank you very much for your comment. Well, now we are at the end, so I would like to thank all our speakers and also the audience. Thank you very much.